Spoilers for possibly everything in Percy Jackson 2005 franchise. Now, on to the review. The opening narration feels like a natural trigger warning without saying the word trigger warning. Percy outright states that half-bloods often get killed in painful, nasty ways, which indicates to us viewers that this story will definitely have violence in it. So I wouldn't let anyone who is 9 years old or younger watch it. Actually, I'd watch the whole thing myself first before letting any kids see it. Anywho, I like the narration paired with the visuals, showing how the mist affects Percy and everyone else, whilst he has no idea what's going on. When Grover, near the end of the first episode, briefly explains the mist, the narration from before makes more sense with that new context. I like how Nancy's bullying of Percy and Grover got shown in the three brief scenes, as she first hits Grover in the face with her heavy backpack, for which I definitely wanted to give her detention for, then mocks Percy for having said mum during the field trip to the museum, then throws her lunch at Grover's face. Additionally, Grover is Asian American, whilst Percy and Nancy are white Americans. So her bullying Grover physically, whilst only sticking to words when bullying Percy, comes across as her being racist. Which makes sense, because a lot of bullies in real life are also racist. I love that even though Grover is fine with letting the bullying go because he's sympathetic to whatever personal issues Nancy has, Percy shoots that nonsense down and points out how it's not at all okay for Nancy to take those issues out on other people. And I love the contrast between pacifistic Grover suggesting talking to a guidance counselor, whereas Percy is just suggesting to shove Nancy into the nearest dumpster, which I'm guessing is an American word for those big public rubbish bins. I also love how Percy's dyslexia is depicted and that the word dyslexia is itself mentioned in episode 2. Episode 2 also mentions ADHD, which is short for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And in this episode, Percy mentions how he tends to daydream and how he burnt marshmallows because it was difficult to pay attention and stuff like that. I also love how Percy in episode 1 kills Alecto, one of the three Elinies. I probably pronounced that wrong because I'm not Greek. Anyway, he kills her by accident, as it shows how new to all of this demigod stuff Percy is. Percy's new to all of this, so I like how it was shown that he's not experienced, he doesn't really know what he's doing. And then later in the same episode, he kills Astelios the Minotauros on purpose in a fit of rage. And that feels more earned because of the contrast. The first kill was done in a fit of scared fumbling, more down to luck, and Anaclosmos, the magic sword, which I'll be calling by its English name Riptide for the rest of this video. And the other one wasn't down to Riptide, it was, and some good luck, it was down to Percy himself actually, like actively fighting and having, being obviously very inexperienced, but still having at least some idea of what he was doing. And one thing I dislike about episode 1 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians 2023 is Grover's betrayal. The head teacher was so clearly being harsh towards Percy due to ableism, and I don't understand why Grover got Percy expelled. He mentions later in the episode that it was because Percy wouldn't have survived the night, but how would Grover even know that? Why wasn't there a brief flashback that showed... the flashback could have been here or it could have been later. Either way, why wasn't there at some point a brief flashback that showed Grover previously refusing to let a Greek demigod get expelled, and that resulted in the kid dying to a monster? I wouldn't have minded that Grover got Percy expelled if there had been a clear reason for it. Anyway, Back to what I love about this episode. I love Sally instantly believing Percy about him having not pushed Nancy. To me, it came across as Sally having previously experienced Percy being blamed by teachers for things he didn't do that were the result of either his powers or the mist or a monster or something. And so she has learned to tell the difference between when Percy has actually messed up and when he's innocent. Of course, that's all just my own interpretation. The story doesn't confirm any of this. I love that Sally gave Percy blue sweets to cheer him up. And I love that Gabe is an emotional abuser in this instead of being physically abusive, since emotional abuse is still abuse, and I wish more stories showed it. Even before Percy goes into the flat, he can hear Gabe shouting at Eddie. Then Gabe sarcastically insults Percy, lies about Percy having failed out of school, used Sally's cell phone without her permission, thus disrespecting her privacy, tells Percy to tell him why the kid got expelled in this smug way that clearly indicates Gabe enjoys these news, tells Percy that he must obey Gabe's rules and that the flat is his, even though he's unemployed and doesn't even pay the rent, which all links to financial abuse. And Gabe is condescending towards Percy for rightfully pointing out that Gabe is losing at imaginary poker. There's a scene that's not in this episode, but at the end of season 1, the final scene actually, is Gabe opening Percy's mail without his permission, and because of that he dies. He literally, all he had to do in order to not die is do the tiniest bit of basic decency by not touching Percy's mail, yet Gabe did it anyway. He has no hesitation in touching Sally's and Percy's properties, in invading their privacy, and just, yeah. Anyway, I love the small moments at Montauk where Percy, like for example, when Percy teased Sally a bit by tapping her shoulder, on and how they laughed when they ran through the rain and small things like that. And I like how they had their heart-to-heart talk and how Sally explained part of what's going on, but Percy didn't really understand because obviously it's difficult to believe that magic and gods and monsters and all that is real. And also my heart broke for Percy when he told Sally about him being just a weird kid who is made from the wrong pieces. That's often how being neurodivergent feels, at least to me. I love Sally using Percy's jacket to distract the Minotauros. It's clear where Percy gets his skill at improvisation from. All in all, this is a great start to the story. It has narration to help set stuff up, but it only lasts for 3 minutes, just enough to be helpful without getting irritating. And the 3 different action scenes had plenty of variety, so I never felt bored during them. I like how all the exposition was delivered in a casual way that felt natural. I'm giving this episode a score of 9 out of 10, with 1 meaning that I fully despise it with all my heart, and 10 meaning it's absolutely flawless and utter perfection. So yeah, that one point that I had to remove was for the head teacher scene, needing a bit more context for Grover's action, context that's never given in later episodes. I was gonna make this video cover the entirety of season 1, but it's already too long, so I'm stopping here. Episode 2's review will be posted tomorrow. Happy New Year!